This is The World of Business, your weekly cutting-edge business show where we give you the latest and trending business stories as well as updates on the stock markets. We also give the spotlight to thriving entrepreneurs in the Zimbabwean landscape. Hello, my name is Steve Tadzoga and this is The World of Business. The Victoria Falls Stock Exchange was established in 2020 and one of its key benefits was its ability to provide capital through different securities. That is your debt, equity, your ETFs, your exchange traded funds, as well as real estate investment trust, and otherwise known as REITs. And today we are going to be analyzing its performance since its inception. And joining me in that conversation is going to be an economist and a financial expert, Mr. Trymore Muhlanga. Do stand by for that one. But for now, we give you the exchange rates as of today.
Exchange rates as of Thursday, 31 August were: the Zimbabwe dollar to the USD interbank rate was at $4,608.10. The Zimbabwe dollar to the Great Britain pound interbank rate was at $5,860.18. The Zimbabwe dollar to the euro interbank rate was at $5,031.61. The Zimbabwe dollar to the South African rand interbank rate was at $0.0041. The Zimbabwe dollar to the Botswana pula interbank rate was at $343.38.
We also give you commodity prices on the global markets.
Commodity prices as of Thursday afternoon were: gold per ounce traded at $1,971.20 after it went down by 0.09 percentage points. Silver per ounce traded at $24.92 after it went down by 0.73 percentage points. Copper per pound traded at $381.30 after it went down by 0.81 percentage points. Platinum per ounce traded at $977.81 after it went down by 0.21 percentage points.
That's all we had for you in the first segment of The World of Business. Do stay tuned for the second segment where we are going to be analyzing the performance of the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange since its inception in 2020. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the second segment of The World of Business, and as said earlier on, we're going to be analyzing the performance of the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange since its inception in 2020. And to help me unpack that conversation, I'm joined by an economist and an expert in finance, and his name is Mr. Trymore Muhlanga, who is also going to shed more light on that subject. Hello and welcome to The World of Business, Mr. Muhlanga.
Good day, Steve, and good day to viewers. Thank you.
Right, to kickstart our conversation, there were hiccups in the listing of some companies, especially SeedCo, which was delisted and listed again after the Minister of Finance intervened because the market was now using their current trading price to substantiate the exchange rates on the black market, and the ministry had to intervene. What was the issue here and how was it resolved?
Thanks, Steve. So I think the major issue stemmed from the fungibility of those multi-listed counters. SeedCo came in at a later stage, but I'm sure viewers and yourself will be aware of what was known as the Old Mutual implied rate, because of all the multi-listed counters, Old Mutual remains the most liquid by virtue of being listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, on London Stock Exchange, and also within the region. So you then find we have PPC, and then we also have SeedCo. So that's where the challenge stemmed from, because in the main, the Old Mutual exchange rate, Old Mutual implied rate, was now tended to be used by some market participants as a reflection of the alternative market rate, which is usually called the parallel or black market rate. So that was the major aspect in the. I think the resolution currently what we see is that SeedCo International is listed and trading on the Victoria Falls Exchange. Also, the same can be said of PPC, but not the same cannot be said of Old Mutual, whose trade remains suspended, so to speak. So the challenge then becomes one, when you look at the shareholder perspective, they cannot then perhaps extract value if they want to buy or sell. In the main, shareholders and stock market players play a long game. It's not like you buy and sell. That would be speculative. But for those shareholders, it then becomes something of a disadvantage. But like I said, SeedCo International is now trading, and PPC is also trading. Old Mutual remains suspended.
Thank you for giving some light on that. And looking at the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, which is also governed and under the Zimbabwe, the Securities Exchange Commission of Zimbabwe. And we've noticed that they've got a specific criteria that they use to register companies or list companies on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. But then if you look at how they did it with the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, they sort of relaxed some of the requirements. Like, for example, they require that a company should have at least publicly issued and distributed audited financial reports for a certain period, minimum 5 years. But then we are seeing a new breed of companies that are being registered on the Victoria Falls Exchange. Is this like affirmative action to get more counters on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange? And if that's affirmative action, how has that manifested in terms of the intention?
Thank you, Steve. So I'll start with the latter part of the question. It would, look like it's affirmative action because we have seen incentives for listing on the VFEX. And what it has also then done is, when you look at this year, for example, out of the 13 counters that we now have listed on the Victoria Falls Exchange, a good number have been listed this year and last year, the likes of First Capital, Nedbank, Simbisa. It was 2022-2023, where we spoke earlier about SeedCo and the initial hiccups. You will find that 2020-2021, there was a time we actually had just 1 or 2 counters. So we have seen an increase in counters on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange due to that. But I was hasten to say, even with the incentives that are in place, there's still a requirement for some quite important information, like when you look at profitability of the company that wants to list, it's still a requirement. Capital base, the $3 million requirement of their capital is still there. The market information, like to keep the market informed, all those regular updates and all that, they are still there. But the incentives in the main that we then have seen are lower trading costs on the VFX. We have also seen tax incentives. You are aware that perhaps when you look at Victoria Falls, that's one of our special economic zones. So there are lower taxes. For example, if one is disposing, then the withholding and capital gains tax, in certain instances, there is actually zero. So those are some of the incentives that have come up on the VFX, over and above the major one, which is naturally the fact that you can actually trade and raise foreign currency by so doing. As I conclude, you also then see that we have a number of exchange-traded funds that have also then come onto the market, and one which is a real estate investment trust, like Tigere and all that. So those are positives of the relaxation in courts that we could speak about.
Absolutely. Thanks for shedding light on that. And then let's now move on to comparison. I like to compare the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange to the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. And looking at the volumes that are traded on either exchanges, of course, the Victoria Falls Exchange would come short because it's got a few counters listed. But in terms of those volumes and their execution, looking at the compound growth of the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, do you see it as a blinker of hope for Zimbabweans in terms of it being a special economic zone?
All right, thank you, Steve. I'll start off by saying, so currently, the comparison, we can do it, but to a limited extent, because the ZSE has been around and the Victoria Falls Exchange 2020, and currently like I said, most of those stocks are actually 2023. So they have about a few months history, and you can't do an annual trend on them or a 2-year trend. So that's the limitation. But when you look at important metrics like volumes traded, so you can look at volumes traded, you can look at value, you can also look at market capitalization, and then naturally you can look at the index, because there is an all-share index and all that. When you look at volume and value, there is, when you compare the two, there is much more on the ZSE than on VFX, not just because of the limited number, the differences in numbers, like 13 here, close to 60 there and all that, but because of US dollar liquidity. So I'll give you just a quick example. In the main, when we have inflation in an economy, individual investors and corporates tend to do what is called the hardening of the balance sheet. So hardening the balance sheet is whereby you realize I've got Zim dollar in my account, but if I leave it there, time value of money it will erode. Then what do? Buy counters. So with the Victoria Falls Exchange now, it's more interesting, because the moment there is an announcement that one counter is about to list on the Victoria Falls Exchange, I quickly realize as an investor that I can buy using my Zim dollars currently, then convert to US dollar, because it becomes a US dollar traded stock. So what we have seen is there is more trade on the Zim dollar currency side than there is on the US dollar. So in terms of volume and value, what I've actually seen is that when a counter moves from ZSE to Victoria Falls, immediately it does so, there is a bit of a reduction in its actual US dollar price. So it actually sheds a bit more of a bit of its value. And then I think, but over time, we should have a correction of that, and we can actually be able to have much value by moving to the Victoria Falls Exchange.
Very interesting. And now, as we wrap up the conversation, based on the data that we've collected between the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange and the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, we see a disparity in terms of the volumes traded. But there's one thing that is in common on both markets, that symmetrical companies that have had the ability to list on both exchanges, there are people who are, like you said, who are speculative in their investments, and they do sniper trades. They get in and they leave early. And you actually confirmed it in one of your statements, where you said there is a period by which you cannot liquidate your stock. Otherwise, if you do within that period, the withholding tax will be slightly higher. Is that confirmation for insider trading and manipulation of a certain stock based on the symmetrical market?
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, so some of these policy initiatives came in a bid to correct exactly what you've just said. So I mentioned circuit breakers, one of which is the period that you have to hold a stock before you actually sell it. In the main, investing on the stock exchange is usually a long game. So those that buy today and sell tomorrow, quite small periods, are the ones that are in the main usually speculative. And somebody could also have a bit of insider information whereby they know that something is imminent, then it's important to shed this stock, then they sell and all that. Or perhaps before the market knows that a counter is about to migrate to the Victoria Falls Exchange. Before then, somebody knows, and then they start buying. Between you and me, when the announcement is then ultimately made, those traders, those investors who would like to harden their balance sheet, like I said, they would start exercising demand on the stock. So the price usually goes up around announcement of a migration, but not before. So if I know before and not everyone else knows, then I buy at a cheaper price. And before the initiatives came in, the policy initiatives came into place, I could actually do quite a bit of buying and selling and all that. I could even buy as an investor, let's just say as a speculative investor, 2 months before the announcement is made. When the announcement is made, the price goes up, then I sell. And I already collect. So some of those issues were to correct the insider trading aspects that could have happened because of the existence of two stock exchanges.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Trymore Muhlanga, for shedding more light on that issue.
Thank you, Steve. It was my pleasure.
Right. And the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange is very strategic in that Victoria Falls is a special economic zone, and it prompts and allows investors to invest in real money terms in United States dollars and liquidate their positions and still get the United States dollars. So meanwhile, a lot of work needs to be done in terms of the listing of more counters to give our traders variety. The Victoria Falls Stock Exchange looks like it's a promising market. And with that, that brings us to this segment of the World of Business. Do stay tuned as we delve into the third segment of the World of Business, where we give you the Entrepreneur of the Week. Stay tuned. Welcome to the third and final segment of the World of Business, where we give the spotlight to the Entrepreneur of the Week. Now, the World of Business team spoke to Mr. Perseverance Madende, a vibrant and youthful entrepreneur who is involved in the manufacturing of household and industrial chemicals. Let us hear more from Stella Marere as she speaks to Mr. Perseverance Madende.
Behind the government's efforts to improve sanitation facilities and to fight against germs and dirt is the support of Mr. Perseverance Madende, who is a local young entrepreneur involved in the manufacturing of household and industrial chemicals. Now, the National Development Strategy 1 also puts emphasis on exploiting the youth dividend in as far as fostering economic growth and development is concerned. He's here today with us and is going to tell us more about this initiative. Hello, Mr. Madende, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, Stella. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. I must say that I'm surprised to see a young person running this business, and of course I know there are other people behind it, but I want to know what was the motivation behind you venturing into the manufacturing of these household and industrial chemicals?
Okay, thank you so much. So I joined this business in 2016, and my role was basically to manage the production efficiencies, to measure normal losses that were happening during production. So for me to be on top of the game, I was supposed to know how to make the detergent. So I'll be able to know how the losses were being done, how the losses were being incurred. So I interact more with manufacturers so that I know how to make dishwasher. When they say, we've put so much salt and the dishwasher is discoloring, I would want to know the reason behind. So that's when I become also part of the manufacturing of the detergents. And then the interest of the chemistry then developed, and I was in love with the magic of chemistry. So they give me the information. I also observed what they were doing. And then I said, okay, this is my thing.
From the issues that you've actually raised, you can pick that value addition is also another aspect that you're touching on as a business. And it being one of the major outcomes that is going to be used to measure the performance of the manufacturing sector under the National Development Strategy 1. How would you say that as a business you are contributing to improving the value chain?
In 2019, 2020, 2018, we were making around 100,000 liters only of all the detergent that we're making. But currently, we are around 600,000, 700,000 annually. And we have improved the capacity of our plant, making sure that we can also get into 1 million liters per year. And this was also done by the local suppliers. Everything that is within this plant was done by the local suppliers, the likes of the shrink wrapper, the mixing tanks, and as well as the jet coating machine. We've also invested in certification of quality management systems, which is SAS. We're also SAS certified to make sure that we provide the best quality products. And also, we are also supporting local entrepreneurs who are doing labeling. We do a lot of labeling here, and these are being printed locally. Our corporate wear, our t-shirts, our banners, they are also being done locally. So we are also supporting the young people that are also trying to rise within the corporate world. Also to mention, we also do support those who want to make detergents but don't have capacity. So they'll just bring their labels here, and we do labeling for them, and they'll be selling using their brand.
So I will stay with you for a fact that you keep mentioning your operations being restricted to the nation of Zimbabwe. Are you involved in any regional or international trade?
Yes. Regionally, yeah, we do get our raw materials from South Africa. We also do direct imports. Thanks to the government for introducing the auction system, it actually helped us to access foreign currency and be able to access raw materials at a very cheaper price. But however, we also attended the Zimbabwe Zim Trade. We were also doing some expos with Botswana companies. We also participated, and there was a matchmaking that was being done. And this is something that is in the process, and we are hoping that very soon we'll be also starting to export to Botswana.
Percy, employment creation being one of the key areas that you are actually touching on as a business. Can you tell us about your staff complement, looking at both the part-time and the full-time employees?
All right, so on our headcount, we have 15 permanent employees, and then we have also a sales and marketing team, which comprises of marketers and merchandisers, because we also deal with the largest supermarkets in Zimbabwe. So we also need to make sure that our products are being merchandised, looking the pricing is there, and also interacting with customers. We also have casual workers, which we also hire when we have demand, especially in the times when we have so much demand from supermarkets, institutions. I think I can say we engage about 10 people.
You mentioned that 65% of your employees are actually female. Is there a particular reason why we have more women working in the factory?
Basically, when it comes to detergents, many people think that it's a man job. But you've seen that, in terms of the smartness, the cleanliness that is behind the female gender, we also then realize that we also need to support them, and we're also planning to train them to become the manufacturers. Because at the moment, they are also only focusing on labeling, because they are very smart, so labeling, they are doing it perfectly. But we are also in the pipeline of taking them into the manufacturing platform.
Yes, I think we need to see more women coming on board,
Yes.
being involved in these more scientific processes. Let's talk about your achievements. Besides you mentioning that you're actually breaking the gender stereotypes that have been prevalent in our society for quite a long time now. Let's talk about some of your biggest achievements that you celebrate today as a business.
All right, so I think the first great achievement that we have achieved as a business is to grow our revenues, our volumes. We have grown in the past 5 years, we have grown our revenues and volumes by almost 65%. And we've also expanded our plant capacity, and our capacity utilization has also grown. We've also managed to create employment to the local communities, to even people that are even not in Harare. We also have merchandisers, the employees that we mentioned earlier on. We also have become a SAS certified business in terms of the quality management systems. And I can also say we've managed to participate in the auction system introduced by RBZ, and we've been awarded money to buy raw materials outside Zimbabwe. Okay, talking about achievements, through the quality management system that we are certified, we've also managed to come up with products that have the best quality, reducing the level of imports that are coming from surrounding countries in the southern region. We've also managed to engage ourselves in the expo of trying to get a platform to export our striped detergents to nearby countries such as Botswana, Namibia, and Zambia. We are also working hand in hand with the local hospitals to make sure that they also tell us on which products they want, in making sure that our health care, our health facility improves and fight the diseases that are within our country.
Lastly, Percy, I would like to thank you so much for joining us today and for enriching us with the information and the motivation that you have given us today. But before you leave, it has been noted that most youths have not yet embraced the culture of hard work and the principle that hard and honest work actually pays. And yet we are regarded as the torchbearers of the future of Zimbabwe. In your own opinion, and as a young entrepreneur in Zimbabwe, what's your comment to fellow youth in as far as exploiting available opportunities and us participating in the growth of our economy is concerned?
Okay, so to the youths, I would say the mantra Zimbabwe is open for business. That one, I would take it as a way to motivate the youths in Zimbabwe. When I was in high school, my boarding master always says, "Mukai vakomana, machirani mazayena." So if you sleep and think that the government is going to assist you, your parents are going to assist you, let's get out of those blankets. Let's not be on social media posting things that are not benefiting the economy or ourselves. There is so much we can do. Social selling, farming, detergent making. It's very simple. You just need to make sure that you have resilience, patience, because Rome was not built in a single day. So I just want to encourage the youth to fight for their own lives, to make sure that they also contribute to the well-being of Zimbabwe and become the people of tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Percy, for the enriching conversation that we've had today. I'm sure the youths and the other viewers out there have actually taken some nuggets from this conversation.
You're most welcome, and thank you so much for coming through, and please continue with this beautiful work.
That's the message we took today from the conversation we're having with Mr. Perseverance Madende, who's a local entrepreneur and a youthful entrepreneur on top of that, who's motivating the fellow youths of Zimbabwe to work hard and to exploit the available opportunities that we have in this country. And that brings an end to this week's segment of our Entrepreneur of the Week. Be sure to join us again next week. It's now back to the studio.
That was the third and final segment of the World of Business that focused on the exploits being done by Mr. Perseverance Madende, and it also brought to the spotlight that Zimbabwe has the greatest potential to win itself over resilience on imported chemicals, as we have citizens working overtime to support the nation in this regard. That brings us to the end of this edition of the World of Business. Do join us next week, same place, same time. Pleasant viewing until then.